All right, thank you, everybody. Let's get back to business. I would like to introduce our next guests. Scott Anderson of the Environmental Defense Fund and Jennifer Hadaiya of Air Alliance Houston. They are here to help us with some table setting. So we're bringing people to the table. Now we're going to set the table. They're going to help us understand what carbon management is, what role it has among other climate change solutions, why it is a topic of conversation here in Houston. And so hopefully this will be an opportunity for us to kind of get some basics about all of this new terminology that we're trying to discuss right now. So thank you very much.
Full disclosure, I'm not doing any of that. And I just want to say my gratitude to Reverend Caldwell. If Mayor Turner transmitted some of Reverend Caldwell's thoughts into action, Reverend Caldwell and I are going to share some similar thoughts to you, and you'll hear some synergy between them. My name is Jennifer Hadaiya. I'm the Executive Director of Air Alliance Houston. We are a local nonprofit advocacy organization that has been working for decades to elevate and center the concerns of communities across Houston and Harris County who are overburdened with air pollution and its negative health effects. But more importantly, I am a Houstonian. I was born in Pasadena. I grew up near Hobby Airport. I went to high school in Montrose. 3 generations of my family have worked up and down the ship channel in union jobs, I will note. I love my city, and I want everyone in it to be healthy and safe. I was asked, along with my colleague Scott from Environmental Defense Fund, to help set the stage for today's event, to level set why we've come together and what we hope to accomplish over the next 2 days. And to do that, I do need to take a short step back. Mayor Turner alluded to this, and I think it has to be surfaced. The event you are here for tonight didn't look like this when it started. It was not structured as a dialogue. It did not elevate and center the community voices you've already begun to hear. But with true openness from Climate Now, thank you, James, and the hard work of the groups that have already been mentioned, we kind of threw the agenda away. And we started over. And we started over in a way that brought community needs to the forefront. And I don't raise this in this moment solely to criticize. I truly don't. I raise it here to emphasize how important it is with the people and the agencies that are here in this room to keep this space as one of true listening. Research shows that 94% of all planned CCS projects across the country are in or within 3 miles of an environmental justice community. Yet centering environmental justice communities in conversations about CCS, especially here in Houston, has been an afterthought at best. Let's not do that today. So here is my challenge. I want to challenge everyone here to hold the space we have made together as a true dialogue. To the researchers, developers, policymakers, and industry in the room, I challenge you to consider that another person's story about CCS that is different than your own can also be true. And I challenge you to speak truthfully about this technology. Both of those things will go a long way in rebuilding trust with community. And to my community partners in the room, I encourage you to continue surfacing the hard issues. Ask the tough questions. Remember that you are experts in this space too. We are all deeply aware of the climate crisis that we face. We know that we must stop fossil fuel carbon emissions to save ourselves and our planet. Thankfully, that fact is not up for debate here. But the ways in which we do that are up for debate, as they should be. And as we debate these solutions here today, as we dialogue, as we listen, as we surface questions and ask those tough issues, we must always consider who will be living within those 3 miles of these CCS projects, yes, and make decisions that benefit them. And with that, I will turn it over to my colleague, Scott.
Thank you, Jen. I want to second Jen's comments and introduce myself and make a few additional comments. I'm Scott Anderson with Environmental Defense Fund. I'm in our Austin office. I lead a team in our energy transition program that focuses on CCS, hydrogen, and unplugged oil and gas wells. The first thing I'd like to note is that the goals of this dialogue are quite ambitious. They're so ambitious that I think it's important that we all have somewhat modest expectations about what can be accomplished between now and the end of the day tomorrow. Fully achieving the goals that have been set out for this dialogue is something that will take follow-up conversations and time. And as has already been noted, this dialogue is not just a one-time event. I don't want to review all the goals that are in your brochure, but just to remind you of a few of them. These ambitious goals include giving community members and representatives a platform to voice questions and concerns. The goals include examining what we know and don't know about carbon management effectiveness, safety, and other environmental impacts. Another goal is to create durable bridges among all stakeholders, communities, industry, policymakers, government, universities, and regulators for ongoing communication beyond this dialogue about achieving an informed and equitable energy transition. And finally, also would highlight the goal to lay the groundwork for developing a strong agenda for a workshop to be held in Houston in the spring. I've also been asked to say, of course so is Jen, but she refused. I've also been asked to say a little bit about what carbon management is, what role it can play in solving the climate change crisis, and why this is especially important for Houston. Carbon management can be defined as a system of technologies that work together to reduce the carbon dioxide pollution that's a big contributor to global warming. It involves capturing carbon dioxide, either from industrial facilities or from the air, and then transporting it as necessary, usually in pipelines, to where it can either be permanently stored underground in geologic formations or can be incorporated into products and keep it out of circulation in that fashion. Capture from industrial facilities is called CCUS or CCS, and capture from the air is referred to as carbon dioxide removal or direct air capture. But in both cases, whether it's captured from an industrial facility or from the air, it's then taken, as I said, to either to secure geologic storage or incorporated into certain products. Carbon management, as Brad said, is by no means the only approach to fighting climate change. There are also other strategies. But many people say that by 2050, the world will be needing to capture and sequester about 3 billion tons of CO2 per year. And that's a lot. That's like 600 times more than we currently are capturing and sequestering. And it's a big number, but about a third of that is projected to need to take place in the United States. So by 2050 in the US, we may have 1 billion tons a year of CO2 being captured and dealt with. And then finally, what about Houston? Why is this meeting happening here? DOE is interested in doing this dialogue in Houston because Houston's going to see a lot of carbon management activity, and there are many overburdened communities in the area that have suffered a disproportionate share of the impacts of industrial development for a very long time, not even counting the additional impacts that might come from the deployment of the carbon management technologies. So finally, I want to encourage everyone here not to be shy about asking questions, including hard questions, not to be shy about voicing opinions and speaking up if anything that's said needs to be better explained. We have a session this evening that's called a listening session, but in reality, this entire program, both this evening and tomorrow, can and should serve as a listening session and an opportunity for back and forth conversation. In particular, I hope people will discuss and ask questions about what protections are needed to minimize new negative effects and what can be done to help reverse existing inequities.
Thank you so much. I'd like to take a few minutes to answer or to have our guests here answer any questions. If you guys have any questions from them, either about what we're doing here or about carbon management or comments. Oh.
You mentioned unplugged wells. Isn't it, when I look at a smokestack in the chemical industry, wouldn't it be easier to capture emissions from the smokestack than to capture carbon in the open air? I would imagine. Are there any efforts to just cap or to capture emissions from smokestacks?
Okay. So capping smokestacks basically means to cease the emissions from the plant, which basically means you don't operate the plant. It's always a question for a given plant whether it should continue to exist or not. But I don't think that capping the smokestacks is going to be a really major part of the effort. Oh, capturing. I'm sorry. I thought you said capping. Yes, much less expensive to capture from a so-called point source or a stack. That might cost really approximate numbers here, $25 to $100 a ton, whereas direct air capture. That sounds better, doesn't it? Sorry. So yeah, the point sources, the industrial facilities with stacks, might cost between $25 and $100 a ton to capture it, but taking it out of the air, even the optimistic assessments are $400 to $500, and some people think it's more like $700 or $800. And you had
I had a comment. I actually liked how Scott heard your question, which is let's just cap them. Ergo, we can prevent carbon and other co-pollutants from being emitted in the first place. And I think it draws to mind something that I would want us to consider as we discuss today, which is on what are our assumptions based? So most of this conversation is based on an assumption that sources of carbon and other co-pollutants are going to continue emitting. And that's an inevitability. And so now let's bring technology in to fix that problem. I would challenge everyone to change that assumption as we have this conversation and not assume that those carbon emitters have to keep emitting. So I liked your answer of just stacking them and then perhaps carbon's not put into the air in the first place.
Yeah, my name's Eric Wieck with Readapt. This is the first time I heard how carbon capture perhaps can help local air quality. I've heard about it, read about it, but this is the first time I see it in a conference like this. I think this is a huge opportunity. I think it doesn't only answer the concern we heard here from the speakers that we need to have some benefits locally. But all around the world, most people really don't care much about carbon capture. And it's really a hard sell when they don't have the energy they need, right? And they may have pollution issues, either from industry or from other sources. If we can combine this would not only be helpful here in this society, but around the world, it would be a completely different discussion if we can combine this and make the air more healthy to live in general. That will actually drive the reduction of carbon globally.
A couple of things real quick. One is right behind you is a guy named John Thompson, and right over there is a guy named Matt Fry, and both of them have recently released reports on this air co-benefits. And the other thing I wanted to say is that, yes, there are co-benefits. Yes, we can probably work to maximize those co-benefits. There are also new risks of new chemicals that can be quite harmful, cancer-causing chemicals that are formed from CO2 capture technologies that use amines, which is the primary technology right now of capturing it. So it's very important to pay very close attention to the degradation products that come from amine capture systems.
I feel like my role here gets to be to ask or suggest challenging thoughts. And I'm going to share something I heard recently that gave me an aha, which is that the acceptance of capture technologies for carbon or co-pollutants invested in industry is an acknowledgement that industry is taking responsibility for polluting the air. And once you acknowledge that, I think you still have to talk about what true point source reduction looks like. And if you are truly reducing at point source, then the expectation should be for industry to emit within permit limits, make permit limits stricter and truly protective of human health, rather than reward them with additional technology and investment to pull out the co-pollutants that they're already putting into the air. And that's probably all time we have.
That is a great and strong note to end on.